Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode. We've got someone joining us today, a Bitcoin enthusiast, I think he's described himself as, and red pilling people all over Asia and Australia. And we'd like to welcome to the show today, Kim. Thanks, Kim, for being with us.
So Kim, give us your genesis story without giving too much away. How have you come to be part of this crypto space?
Yeah, okay. So in 2012, I was in my room and there was a copy of The Economist beside my bed for some unknown reason. I picked up this magazine and I read this little snippet. It was like a little square about this new internet money called Bitcoin. And I thought, I just had this feeling, you know, and my hairs kind of stood on their end. I went, there's something in this. And I Googled the price and they were $11 US each. And I just had this feeling like, and this reoccurring voice in my head that just said, no matter what you do, just buy 2 of these Bitcoins, no matter what you do. And that voice stayed with me for like over a decade. It remains with me. It was like we were connected. I mean, there is definitely a spiritual element to Bitcoin. There is no doubt about it, right?
Absolutely.
And I just saw it. The minute I heard about it, we just connected. You know, and the first time I tried to get invested was in 2014. I was going to buy 2 coins on Mt. Gox, but they'd gone up to $500 each, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a bit steep. I can't afford that." And thank God that happened because of the Mt. Gox collapse. It may have really tarnished my interest in it, you know. So first time I ever got invested and owned any Bitcoin was in August 2020. So I'm just coming up on my first cycle now, and it's been quite a journey.
It's interesting you bring up the spiritual stuff too, because anyone that we've all connected in this space, we all have some thread of something about when we first read about it, and often we'll find that the people we've connected with, we have other philosophies around the world and being in it that are very similar as well. So yeah,
I call it God's money.
God's money.
We can't change humans. We can't change human nature. Humans will always behave the same, but with some proper money, real money, hard money, hopefully we can at least have a level playing field, which we no longer have.
People work hard for their money. And then central bankers print money out of thin air.
That's right, which is theft.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane. Your dollar ain't shit.
I orange-pilled a 65-year-old woman the other day. Well, you know, I've been talking to her for a while, and she has her retirement money. And I said, look, the purchasing power of that money is not going to be the same in 10 years. And she's 65, so let's say she's going to last another 20 years, conservatively. I said, you know, your money's not going to last that long. You need to look at an alternative solution, and I think Bitcoin may be it. And I spent a couple of hours with her to buy her first Bitcoin purchase.
Exciting,
and, yeah, totally.
I said to Kim the other day, I said, gosh, that's a lot of effort you're putting in. And what did you say to me?
Doing God's work.
Doing God's work.
Well, it is. I mean, you're freeing someone potentially from a real-life matrix situation, enslaving the populace.
It's self-serving reasons as well, because that, of course, makes my Bitcoin more valuable. But that's not why I did it.
Kim, I wanted to bring this clip up. We've just started to touch on that fiat is becoming worthless.
Well, I'm a bank, Brian, and I borrow money and I lend it out, and I charge more to the people I'm lending it to than I pay to the people from whom I'm borrowing it.
Well, who do you borrow money from?
Well, from, depositors, Brian. Have you got $1?
Well, yeah,
I borrow your $1 and I give you, there's your bank balance.
$1?
$1.
Right, okay, and you pay interest to me on that?
I do, but I also charge you fees.
Well, why do you charge me fees?
Because, Brian, I'm looking after your money. Your money is secure with me. I'm a bank. I mean, this is a very important amount of money. This is probably your nest egg. It's safe with us.
And how much interest do you pay me?
Approximately the same as I'm charging you in fees.
Oh, good deal for me.
Well, your money's secure with us, Brian, and I then lend that money to businesses, and those businesses generate income. This is how we build an economy.
Yeah. And they put that income into the bank.
They do, of course, Brian, and that builds the savings pool and we can invest more money.
Well, who do you lend that to?
Well, to people who need credit, Brian. You see, money creates more money. So if we can create money that creates more money, we're broadening the economy. We're expanding it all the time. Yes.
But shouldn't people just buy the can afford?
You don't need to afford the things you're buying, Brian. You need to afford the interest on the money you need to borrow in order to buy them.
Do people need to be buying these things that they can afford?
Obviously, they think so, Brian. I mean, these things are advertised to people as very necessary, very important and deeply, deeply attractive.
Well, who's advertising things that people don't need?
The companies we're lending the money to.
That was exactly the clip I thought you were going to play, you know. They talk about in, the banking sector, sophisticated financial instruments. The closer you look at them, you realise that it's just a con and games and theft, and it's just an absolute shit show. It's a club and we're not a part of it, you know. It's like when you were playing Monopoly when you were a kid and you were the banker, you know. Put your hand up if you didn't steal a little 500.
Oh, yeah. Everyone did.
So, look, we should have seen it back then when we were playing Monopoly. Oh, that's what happens. So, look.
That's so true.
As we're saying, we're trying to create a level playing field. We're opting out of that system of sophisticated financial instruments. I mean, wow, just wow.
The Bitcoin thing is it was our club, right? The difference between their club and we're not invited is that with our club, technically they are invited. And so, like, obviously an ETF kind of goes against the point of Bitcoin. And it just made me think of what you were just saying a second ago. And it's like, it's almost weird. It's like they've made their way into Bitcoin as well. And somehow some people are losing track or even being introduced to Bitcoin through a way that truly does kind of go against the whole thesis.
There are negative implications. And for me, I think the biggest negative implication is that the core promise for me of crypto, of Bitcoin, is this idea of self-custodial products where you have ownership of your own money. That is the whole dream of the technology, is people being in control of their own money. And these ETFs, while they are great, they are the creation of a financial instrument where someone else owns your money and you have access to it in the form of, this publicly traded share on this stock exchange. And that's all well and good, but it does get away from those original ideals, which I think is really important to remember. My hope is that the industry can use the Bitcoin ETFs as sort of a top of funnel, that people can become interested in technology, hear about it, get access to it for the first time, maybe through these Bitcoin ETFs, if that's the easiest way for them to get access to it, but then go down the rabbit hole and learn about what the technology is actually about and begin to own it themselves and really use it themselves in a truer way to the core ethos of the technology.
I also know how difficult it is to self-custody Bitcoin, and I understand that there's a lot of companies out there that want exposure to it. So, and they don't want to do self-custody. They don't want to get heavily involved in the intricacies of it. They just want exposure to the hopefully increasing value, So I get that. And the banks are prepared to offer that. As we know, if you self-custody, which I assume everyone here does, it's no joke, It needs to be taken seriously. Yes.
Not your keys, not your coins. And those people that are new on board, Kim, as you know, with the person that you helped recently, it's so hard to explain to people how to store it. So, yes, I totally understand as well that there needs to be solutions for people to be invested without those hassles.
I can remember when before I bought my first, couple of $100 worth of Bitcoin, asking somebody, so what do I get? And he was like, you get Bitcoin. And I'm like, yeah, but
what is it?
So, look, I was the same. I mean, now I send money here, there and everywhere. I'm like, I'm super comfortable with it, and it's a process that we learn. And this idea that we can look after our own money, I mean, you can lose your money in the bank. I mean, ask the Lebanese, ask the Argentinians, can you lose your money in the bank? Right, exactly. Banks are only good till they're not, So,
Kim, do you look at Bitcoin as, obviously you look at a store of value, but how much do you see it or foresee it as a transactional type of currency?
It's a good question. Look, I saw the Lightning Network back in early 2021. I thought it was just a concept. I didn't realize that it actually existed. So I saw really clearly years ago that like, I thought about, you know what, the average African farmer is never, ever going to use the blockchain. They just never will. And I could see it here in Asia where I live. I could see the taxi drivers just holding up their phone and getting a payment from phone to phone, but it had to be quick and it had to be cheap. And that second layer protocol is offering that. But people don't really talk about Lightning Network a lot, and I'm surprised because it is so fast and it's so efficient. It runs into a few problems here and there, but
the arrival of the telegraph, what Lincoln used to call lightning messages, changed the nature of information.
I just want to add to that. I think it's pretty clear that if you're from the West, that cash is disappearing, particularly in Australia, where I'm originally from. Cash is disappearing. So people, even Elon Musk said this, people always need a dark economy, a dark form of economy, right? Because there's things that human beings like to do that they don't want on their credit card bill, you know, whatever that may be. So the Lightning Network will be used for that. The Lightning Network will become, in my opinion, the new cash. The problem with the Lightning Network is, unlike, Jack Mallers' app, Strike, in America, where you can have your sats instantly convert to US dollars, is that in where I'm from, I don't have that option. So I have to keep it in sats. But as soon as I can convert it to whatever local currency, people are going to use the Lightning Network without even knowing they're using the Lightning Network. I always keep some on hand. And when I see on Twitter, for example, somebody asking for money, if they have a Lightning receipt, I pay them straight away. A little bit of money just so people know that it's a reality and it's happening, because I think the more we use it day to day, the better it is for Bitcoin.
So the difference, though, between using it to behind the scenes convert into the local currency as opposed to using it straight up, as in, I'd like to buy this coffee, here's this Bitcoin, and the transaction's just the Bitcoin. I assume that the conversion into local currency now involves a bank.
Currently, what it involves is a trading platform if you want to convert it into the local currency, but it's not even converting it into the local currency. It's calculating the local currency with it is problematic. If you've got Strike app and it immediately converts it to US dollars, because most, shop owners and the like, they don't want their money going up and down. They want their money staying stable. So I think if there's a way that Lightning Network can instantly convert to a stable coin, which is basically how Strike works, but you can do that kind of everywhere, it's going to work a whole lot better.
Right. And it's still involving some centralized source, right? It
is. Where you're dealing with stable coins, you're dealing with a centralized situation.
Right.
That's right.
Kim, you bring up the name Jack Mallers, and I did see something this week that was very interesting, and I'd like Jesse and your opinion on this.
Here's a quote I love. There are two ways to express power in this world: voice and exit. When voice is no longer sufficient, you have one option.
Exit.
Get out. Goodbye. And is it going to be hard? Yeah, but that's okay. It could be hard and it's going to be okay. It can be hard and we're going to figure it out. And I think over time, my generation and people around this country should. If we all spent on credit and just owned Bitcoin, we would run the U.S. insolvent. It's not Joe Biden's country. It's our country. It's a democracy.
Facts.
So I'm done. I'm done holding something that only goes down. Logically speaking, who cares the propaganda that you're told on your TikTok For You page? If I were to look you in the eye and say, do you or do you not want to own something that will only go down? What would your answer be?
Of course not.
Of course not. Because you know how people fund war? They debase your currency to go bomb people. Every bomb that America drops wasn't funded by me. You own dollars. You participated in contributing to that. I'm not part of it.
Look, I think that's right. If if you can just print money to go to war, fiat currency is backed by nothing. So what backs the US dollar is the petrodollar system, and what really actually backs US dollars is guns. That's what backs it up. Bitcoin it's a quiet revolution. It's opting out of the monetary system. What I saw in Bitcoin was that the real revolution was the decoupling of governments and the creation of money. And I saw that and I went, oh, wow, that's a big deal.
It's funny when you think about that, like growing up, I would almost think, isn't that illegal? Or how this like that can't be. And to know that in the future that not only that, it's just going to be we're going to be inundated with just endless supplies of currency.
Stealing's illegal unless it's a sophisticated financial instrument.
Yeah.
Then we'll let it go. So if money ultimately is power, then the governments are creating their own power. So when the dollar does, and I don't believe the US dollar is going to fall. I believe that Bitcoin and the US dollar are going to live side by side. Does that mean like Michael Saylor is going to be the president of the world? Like what does that mean? Like because money will still be power.
Because with great power comes great responsibilities.
I was actually having this conversation about middle classes with someone recently, and when I lived in London, I already saw it make the creep on the middle class a long time ago, and I can see that in Australia too, because as you know, I'm from Australia also. So it's very interesting. The gap is getting bigger, and it's getting bigger in very obvious ways.
I think when you look at the genesis block of Bitcoin, when it was created, was after the GFC, this massive financial crisis that I believe that was just the start of it. 15 years later, it's still going on. And what's about to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, I think the world is economically in a world of trouble. And like Bitcoin's just the antidote. It's just born out of necessity because the money got so ridiculous that we needed something that was real. When your average working people can't afford to buy a house to live in, you've got a real problem. Your Ponzi scheme is going to fall over.
So it's a Ponzi scheme within a Ponzi scheme.
Both of you have partners, wives that are down with the journey. Like they're pretty cool. And so this tweet just reminded me of this. The time of wives freaking out because of your insane Bitcoin stacking is soon over. The time of starstruck wives will soon begin.
All of her questioning about, hey, if Bitcoin goes up, what about if we blank is totally warranted, because I've spent the last 2.5 years going, don't worry. Just wait one more year. We're going to have some fun.
I think sometimes that can be actually the problem with Bitcoin is that it draws so much personal energy from me. It's a lot of my, at least 40% of my day is like thinking about Bitcoin, and therefore I'm thinking about money. My wife's a Bitcoiner. She's a believer, which is funny because the first time I came to her and I said, hey, honey, I'm thinking about buying some Bitcoin. And she sort of scoffed at me and said, you foolish little man, why would you do that? It's based on air. That's not a direct quote. And then I came to her about like a year later and said, hey, can we buy some Bitcoin? And she said, yes, let's do it. We absolutely share business, money, children. We share our lives, and she's probably not as obsessed with it as I am, but she's most certainly a believer. But it does draw a lot of your energy, and you're probably sometimes less inclined to spend your money because you know what it'll be worth in some years. So you're like,
You know, people in crypto often don't have anything in their wallet because
right.
it's not
Yeah.
just, you know, degenerately believing in the thing, right?
Yeah. Look, you know, it's pretty clear to me we're either all really onto something or we're all completely insane, and only time will tell.
Affordable housing.
I saw some little house got sold the other day in inner city Sydney for like $3 million. This tiny little workers' cottage in Paddington or something. And it was a really small house, like 60 square meters or 80 square meters. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I had a conversation that we were going to stay completely out of the real estate market. We just lease our house, and we were going to buy Bitcoin through the bear market. I guess hopefully I saw, more potential in owning Bitcoin than being a part of this real estate bubble.
It makes me think of that Bitcoin family, you know, Didi.
Yeah, Didi.
The original, the OG Bitcoin family. Yeah.
He was actually the very first interview I ever did for any video ever, back with the Hard Forking channel in Copenhagen. Yeah. And that was a while ago. And they sold everything, quite literally everything. And fast forward to 2024, I see them having a great dinner, dancing around up northern part of Phuket, and they're having a grand old time and jet setting around the world. So something worked for them.
They really committed, those guys. They said, we're out. And
well, they needed both of them to be a believer, right? Which comes back to having a partner that really is on board with the philosophy.
They completely unplugged from the system. I mean, in every sense of the word, and then plugged into another system, which is kind of what I'm saying. Like, this is kind of like the silver lining, in my opinion, about all of this, is that as this inevitable kind of control system keeps getting a further grasp on people, you know, people are using their hands to buy their groceries, and everything is fine and dandy until one day they put their hand up to the scanner and it says, you must delete recent posts involving hate speech because your food is no longer available. That will exist. But parallel to this, there's another system that will be going on, which is this kind of underground away from that. And I think they're going to happen at the same time. And it's more of just hoping that, you know, people can smarten up enough to choose one or the other, because you can really choose now, even to the point of feasting on Netflix and Hollywood and material items from advertisements and just sucking and consuming. You can stop that process, and that's like the first step to veering left or right, away from whatever it is that you're heading down. You still have options now. Just don't get so far in that you can't come back.
Point of no return.
Thanks again for being here. It's been really great just chatting and talking about the thing we're all passionate about. And if people want to follow you on Twitter, we'll pop that below in the links. And it's just been so wonderful to have you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jesse. And
keep doing God's work, Kim.
Yeah, for sure.
Work.
Yeah,
God's money.
Thanks a lot. Nice to meet you, brother.
Okay. Bye, Jesse. Bye, Leanne. Thank you.
See ya.
Bitwaves.